Hello and welcome to the Authentic Love Now series. I'm your host, love and dating coach, Deanna Cobden, and today we have the amazing Rachel Russo. She is a matchmaker, dating coach, and relationship coach, author, and speaker. She has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, a BA in psychology, and is the director of education at the Matchmaking Institute. She's appeared in the media, including WGN Morning News, Glamour Magazine, and is the resident dating expert on Brooklyn Savvy TV. She once went on 92 dates in 1 year and blogged about them for an international reality dating blog. Sounds juicy, you guys. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Deanna. Thank you. And for that warm introduction as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to everyone who's listening.
We're super excited. So before we get started, what inspired you to do what you're doing right now?
Well, I always wanted to help people in some capacity. That's why I had majored in psychology. And I didn't really know that this whole matchmaking and dating coaching industry even existed when I had graduated college. And I just by chance found an ad on Craigslist that was for a matchmaking startup in New York City. So I applied to that and I was so excited and I thought like, wow, this is the coolest job I can possibly have. So I started, working for different matchmaking companies, and along the way, I really learned a lot about dating and, getting feedback from clients, like what works and what doesn't work. And I also went to grad school, as you mentioned. So I had like a deeper clinical background in marriage and family therapy. So after years of doing this, and I've been doing this for 13 years, now I have my own company, matchmaking and dating coaching. But, after learning and working with so many clients and different couples that I put together, I realized like the matchmaking is amazing and I do want to do this, but I also want to coach people because it's one thing to put them together, but it's quite another to give them like the ingredients that are going to make it stick and be like a lasting love. Yeah. So I really enjoy like just falling into this career, to answer your question, and kind of developing it organically.
Yeah, I love the coaching part too. It's like teaching a man to fish, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you
just
can
giving him the fish.
Yeah, it's so transformational, deeply transformational. And then you actually can have a successful relationship because you're learning so many skills.
Right.
It's so important to do that. So I love that you do that. So I'd love to hear about your 92 dates and the blogging experience. I feel like these days, when was that?
So it was actually in 2010, which is so fascinating because I was doing this like serial dating thing before people were really doing it. Now I feel everyone's doing it with these dating apps.
Yeah, I know it's like not hard to go on. I've had clients who've been on like 100 dates and
oh my gosh.
And super burnt out. And so I would and that's now, but tell us a little bit about like what was your experience and what did you like what was your takeaways from it?
Well, what was very interesting is that prior to that, I was very young. I'm 34 years old now. I'll be, upfront about my age because I went into the matchmaking industry at 21. I was such a baby.
Young.
And so, 2010, 8 years ago, I didn't have that much dating experience like that myself because I had been in a long-term on and off relationship throughout most of my 20s. So here I was like coaching other people on dating, but I didn't really fully experience what the scene was like until I did that blog. So that was so important because I really got to feel what the women that I was coaching were experiencing.
Yeah, what it's like out there in the wild, right?
Right. So it was a lot of fun to meet all different types of men. I was more open-minded than I really ever was about dating because I literally had a quota to fill. So, I went out with prior to that, I never dated anyone outside of my race or ethnicity. So I did that. I dated someone who was 17 years older, which was also something I had never done at that age. Yeah. And I learned a lot about what I liked and what I didn't like. And I saw different trends and quirks with like men, and just even like paid more attention to the way that I was behaving. on a date with someone that I really liked, as opposed to someone I noticed if I didn't like them that much, I would just let them like talk the whole time and kind of zone out and not even really ask any questions. So it was a really good dating experience for me. And I had some crazy stories, and a lot of fun actually came out of it, including someone that I met who I dated for a couple months, who really took me on this whirlwind type of relationship. And, you know, within a month we were traveling to Puerto Rico and he was saying, I love you. And it was just crazy. But I was in that energy where I was dating so many people. So I didn't over focus on one guy. And I think that did something to make me more attractive to this gentleman and to others.
Yeah, that's so true. You're even the way you started out by saying you were just really open, and that's what you have to be. And like when you're open, that energy is attractive because you're not trying to snare somebody or catch them or, you know, hold on to something, right? You're just really having an experience. So I love that. Okay. So where were you meeting them? Was it online or just like all over? Because you're in New York, right?
Yes, I'm in New York. So I did do online dating. That was the first time I ever really did it. I was on 2 or 3 sites. And other than that, I did tell a lot of my friends that I was doing this blog. So I asked them to play matchmaker and introduce me. And also, you know, in the past, I remember like random guys would come up to me in Starbucks or the park. I would usually say no, like automatically. I would be defensive that this was a stranger and I didn't know him, so I wasn't going to just give him my phone number. But in this case, I needed dates. So I went out with anyone that was sort of decent that, you know, approached me in person as well.
Yeah. Wow. What a great story. That's so cool. It must have helped your coaching a lot.
It did. It really helped me to empathize with women and men. And one thing that wasn't so prevalent back then, like it wasn't even so long ago, but I don't think ghosting really existed to the extent that it does now. So I didn't really experience what it was like to go on these dates and then never hear from someone again. I mean, maybe a couple times, but it wasn't. I think if I did that experiment now, there would be a lot of guys who ghosted because it's just sort of a behavior, unfortunately, that is happening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, people need to really learn how to make that emotional connection. Otherwise, it's just so surface. People don't really.
Yes.
If the connection's almost one-sided, right? Like you're having a relationship with your text.
Exactly. And it's superficial, the small talk of first date. So yeah, you're right.
Okay, so we're going to talk about getting over your ex. So some steps to do that. So before we get started, why do you think that women struggle with that and get kind of obsessed and stuck with getting over their ex?
Well, I think that women are monogamous in nature, a lot of them. Some are not, but for the most part, we find a guy that we really like and we're programmed to kind of latch on to him. And certainly if we start sleeping with him, we're releasing the oxytocin and we're bonding with him. So we want him and we want marriage and we want babies, lots of us. So there's that. And there's also the fear for a lot of women of having to get back into the dating scene if it doesn't work out with a particular guy, because it's hard. And a lot of women feel very lucky to even have found the guy that they're with. And the thought of going out again is very intimidating. So I think it's that familiarity and that comfort and that being programmed to bond with this one man that keeps us very attached.
Yeah, I think sometimes too that there's a fantasy life you created around that relationship that probably actually wasn't really the right relationship anyways, but you've created this fantasy and you're like stuck.
Oh yeah, that's so true for so many women. And I think only in retrospect will they realize, when they experience maybe a guy who is so much better than their ex, then they say like, wow, what was I thinking? I read into things the wrong way, or like I wanted this to work so bad, but the reality is that we weren't really that compatible.
Yeah. So you wrote a book, How to Get Over Your Ex, a step-by-step guide to mend your broken heart Italian American style. So I thought that was really cool. So what inspired the book? Was it a breakup you had, or?
Yes, I did have a breakup of my own, and I really read everything that I can get my hands on. So I was that girl that was very sad, trying to mend her heart. And then I also professionally was seeing a lot of women who were coming to me, and men as well, for matchmaking, but they weren't really over their exes. They were just kind of throwing themselves into being matchmaked or to do online dating, but they were like, let me put myself out there. And they didn't do the healing work within. So I thought, wow, I saw how long it took me. In fact, the ex that I really struggled to get, there were two, but the first one that I struggled to get over was actually before the reality dating blog. And here I went on 92 dates in a year, but I was still attached to my ex. So I realized that going on all of these dates means nothing if you still have that person that you're holding on this pedestal. And I wanted to find a way to get over it. So it was out of my own research, wanting to help myself and wanting to help other people, that I kind of came up with something that worked for me. And I thought maybe I could put a spin on this. And there are things about Italian American culture, I'm obviously Italian, that really helped me. So I put it all together.
Okay, so can you give us like a few examples of what's the Italian part?
Sure. So one of the first things that comes to mind when people think of Italian culture is food.
Yeah, sure.
And I know that emotional eating is a very real thing for a lot of us. I don't want to encourage any unhealthy eating, but yes, there's a focus on food. And I think it's more about nourishing yourself and self-care and really realizing that you've been through a lot. And going through the emotional stress of a breakup is the perfect time to take care of yourself and make sure that you're eating healthy and fulfilling yourself, and having a healthy lifestyle. And then there's family. So that's very Italian. Of course, that's other cultures as well. But to really lean on a support system so that you don't have to get through a breakup alone, whether it's your actual family or it's friends that you consider family, this idea of relying on others and being around with family and having food and living the good life, la dolce vita, that's sort of another chapter. And it's redefining who you are after that relationship. So maybe it's doing hobbies that you've neglected while you were in your relationship, or deciding to travel or pursue a new career, whatever the good life is to you. I help people kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
One other concept that was really important in the book is having faith. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the Catholic religion, although that's the Italian way. It can be any sense of spirituality or any denomination that helps you to get through, and whatever it is that makes you realize, I'm going to still be okay. That's what you kind of have to let go of, the need to have everything work out exactly as you want, and just realize that regardless of what happens with this relationship, if it's totally over and, if you're going to be single for a while, you're still going to be okay. So those are some of the principles that are in the book.
I love that. I'm picturing like you also can think of like that warm Italian mom, like, did you get enough to eat? Are you taking care of yourself? Like, I'm not Italian, look at me, but yeah, that's what I pictured, like just like nourishing yourself. And I love that idea of like, how can you really take care of yourself? And what you're also saying is actually just, that's great advice to transfer to just the dating, like dating steps, even if you haven't got over a breakup. Like, you really need to do self-care. You really need to be having fun and following your passion. So I love that. That's really good.
Thank you. You raise an excellent point, because that is what is going to help people attract the right person if they are living their best life and certainly taking care of themselves. People are drawn to people who have radiant health and beauty, and you can't really fake that with makeup either. We can try, but you want to be happy from within.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the first thing you should do? Is it that nourishing step, or is it something else?
it is something else. So I say in my book, forget about it, the Italian, forget about it. So I actually list 50 things that people should forget about doing when they're in a relationship when the relationship ends rather, because I believe that a breakup is like a death in a lot of senses, and you need to mourn it. So you need to actually feel your emotions, and you need to grieve in order to get on to the next step. In order to let yourself really grieve, you have to separate from your ex. And so this is a lot of my forget about it recommendations. So a lot of people are very tied to their exes on social media. I suggest no contact on social media or phone for a certain period of time, like at least 30 days. I do advocate that. And deleting photos and not going to the places that you went to with your ex, or listening to all of the sad songs, all of that, so that you can get your ex off your brain, and it can kind of be the out of sight, out of mind thing at play. Of course, they're going to still pop into your mind, and you have to really be patient with yourself. But I believe that there are behaviors to take that will help you to get through the steps of the grieving process, and finally being able to come to that place of acceptance that this is dead, it's over, it's really done.
Yeah. I like that you have 50 things.
Yes.
You do need those, like, okay, what can I do now? And it is good. And I think it's really important that you bring up the brain, because you do kind of have to rewire yourself to start thinking differently and behaving differently.
Exactly. It's a big lifestyle change, especially if you've been together for a long time and you're used to thinking about we, and now you have to think about I. And that could be a loss of identity for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. So are there any more steps that someone can take, like, to get over it?
Sure. A lot of what I suggest is really this healing work, and it can be done in different ways, through coaching, through therapy, through journaling. That's one thing that I suggest if people don't want to go the more traditional route. And in my book, I actually have some writing prompts and exercises that people can do. But the idea is, one of the steps, I think, is to learn your lessons. Learn your lessons from that relationship, so that you can understand what actually happened and you don't repeat the same patterns and mistakes in the next relationship. Kind of learning about that can also help you emotionally to heal, because you can realize that if you learn something from this relationship, it wasn't a complete waste. And instead of just focusing on the negative about how bad you feel that you miss this person, you can actually take something from it and try to rationally, like, convince your brain, okay, everything happened for a reason. This was part of my journey. And now I'm doing the work. I'm doing the work to find out what I did wrong, what he did wrong, or, all of that, really dissecting the relationship. So people have different ways of doing this, but I think the ones that I would recommend are traditional therapy, coaching, or journaling. Actually.
Yeah, I love the idea of writing it all down and looking at what the patterns are, because you're going to end up like recycling those patterns and stuck in those patterns if you don't acknowledge them.
Right, exactly. And a lot of required reading for breakups, not just my book, but there's tons of books. I'm very big on psychology, and there's a book by Harville Hendrix called Getting the Love You Want.
Yeah, that's good.
And understanding that if you know that book, it has a lot to do with childhood and the relationships with your parents. So for people who want to dig deeper and really understand, there's a lot of resources and great self-help books out there. So just go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon Books and have a field day.
Yeah, those are good. What was that on Sex and the City? She had like a singles one, and it was like a breakup thing, and Amazon kept recommending all the breakup books. It's like, oh no. So I can't remember what that was. That was funny though. Okay, so is there a perfect time to start dating again, or should you just get out there? Like, what do you recommend?
Well, one rule of thumb is that if you're going to feel the need to talk about your ex, you should not be on a date because dating is about getting to know the person in front of you. So if you're not at the place where you can mentally focus and give your time and energy to that person, it's not fair to them and it's a waste of your time. So I don't know if there's one general time period that I would recommend, but I would say it's not a week, it's not 2 weeks, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 months or more. It is a good idea to start getting out there again and not even expecting, okay, the next date I have, this is going to be my next relationship, but just going out and enjoying other people's company can help you to realize that there are other people that you can learn to love besides your ex, and you can actually have a great time with them. So whenever you're in a positive state of mind that you feel you can enjoy someone else's company and be present, that's when I would say to do that.
Yeah, that's really good. So what are your thoughts on getting your ex back? Like sometimes people start like getting obsessed with, okay, I'm going to take this get your ex back program and try to get him back. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if it's not the right person, save your money because no matter what you do, it's not going to work. I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned personally and from just doing this work with others is that one person cannot do all of the work of a relationship. So you can be doing all of these techniques, figuring out how to draft the text messages to get your ex back. You might get their attention. If they're not the right person, they may still have feelings left over for you. They may want to sleep with you. They may want to get together for lunch. But unless something changes with the dynamic, unless the two of you really talk about what you're going to do different this time, it's hard for me to think that that's going to really work out for most people.
Yeah.
Some people do get their ex back, but I think a lot of those products unfortunately mislead people. Every situation is different. And really, you have to ask yourself, is your ex doing stuff to get you back? Or is this a one-sided relationship where you're trying to manipulate and almost trick them into being with you? And if that's what you're doing, is that what you really want? Is it more about, if you're doing that, is it more about your need to not be alone? Or is it because you really love this person and want them back?
Yeah.
And, if you really love them and want them back, you kind of have to let it go and see if they come back to you on their time. And they really want it, not because you manipulated them.
Yeah, I agree. This is what you're saying is just gold, I think, because you cannot approach these things from a manipulation point. And if you really like, if anyone's thinking about doing that, I think I recommend doing what Rachel just said, which is really journaling and really looking at the relationship. And maybe after you do that, you'll realize like, oh, this is actually, I don't need to get them back. I need to move on with my life.
Exactly. That's really good.
Prioritize my happiness, right? And I love your point about, are they doing that?
Because I notice a lot of times that it's one-sided. And if it wasn't, you wouldn't have to be Googling how to get your ex back because they would just be back. So you have to be honest with yourself. And I would say that people should just really sit down and be quiet and meditate if that's their thing, and look into their heart and see if this is the relationship that they really want, or if there's some other reason that they're trying to distract themselves in their life by getting this person back.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. So this has been so great. You have a free gift. Can you share that with us?
Sure. Well, I'm very happy to speak with anyone who has listened to this interview and is interested in possibly doing some dating and relationship coaching with me. And, even if they just have a question right now and they're not ready to start now, but they really feel like something I said resonated and they want to talk to me, they can do a consultation, 15, 20-minute consultation, whether it's about dating, getting back out there, getting over an ex, even a matchmaking consultation. I do work with women throughout the country. I'm mostly in New York, so most of my clients are New York based, some in Florida, some in California. But if you're a lady listening to this and you're looking for love and you're open to relocating, I could put you in my complimentary database even and consider you for some of my clients. So I'm happy to do a matchmaking consultation as well to see if I have someone that you would like.
Yeah, that's a great gift. So everybody, there's a link under the interview, under the video. Just click on there and go to get Rachel's gift. And thank you so much for your great advice. And thank you everybody for watching. And if something resonated with you, hit reply to the email that this interview came in. let me know and check your inbox for your next email from me. And thank you again. Bye.
Bye, Deanna. Thank you. Thank you so much.